Hello there, and welcome to the first lab for Sustainable Communities 393G. This is the GIS seminar, and this is really going to be an introductory lab. We're going to be covering some of the basic concepts of GIS. We'll be using Google Earth, which I think is a lot more user-friendly and a good way to kind of introduce the concepts and the different pieces, the different working parts of a GIS in a really user-friendly manner. So we're going to start. Hopefully you've already downloaded and installed Google Earth. There is a link on the syllabus. You should be able to go there and free download Google Earth for desktop. And once you've downloaded and installed that, we're going to go ahead and open it up. If you've never used Google Earth before, you're going to get this startup tip, navigating in Google Earth. It gives you some basics on how to work with this software. Now, we're going to go over a lot of this stuff as well, so I'm just going to click out of here. And you should have this, if you click and hold, you should have this big blue marble. You can just kind of spin around. Hope you don't get too dizzy. So we're going to start centered over the United States. Down here you have this tour guide. This shows pictures of all of the places that you're currently centered on. We don't really need that right now. That's a really cool feature that Google Earth has. If you want to explore that some more, I encourage you to do so. There are a lot of images on here, and we're not going to use that right now. So I'm going to close out of that. And if you look at you've got your toolbar up here, your traditional file, edit, view, tools, add, help. Help has some good resources. Add is going to be an area that we use. It corresponds to some of the stuff on the toolbar up here. And on your left side, you have a search feature. So if you wanted to, this is similar to Google Maps. If you ever use that, you can search for example, museums in New York. That's a Futurama reference that I did not mean. Museums in New York. You'll get a whole list of them, and it will zoom in on them for you. Pretty cool, but nothing too advanced. So we're going to close out of that. Close up our search bar. Not interested in that anymore. We want to turn those off, actually. Let's exit out of that search and then close that. So that's useful if you want to find somewhere specific. Your places, this is a file folder directory, and you can see I have some stuff in here. I have this Vicksburg project, which I had for a cultural landscapes class. And if you want to see that one, I've got some points and lines here for Vicksburg, Mississippi. And this is going to be where you actually keep your created projects and your points and lines and polygons that you want to put on the map. Down here on the bottom left, you have your layers, and this is analogous to ArcGIS's table of contents. This is where you keep all of your different layers in your map. So there are some default layers that are turned on. You might have places and photos turned on. So when these come on, you get, for example, Ozark National Forest pops up as a place, and you got some images. This is really useful if you have a project where you want just a general, you want to do a general overview map and you want some images of the place. That's really useful, but we're not going to use that right now. The places are also can be really useful, but that's not going to be included. So one of the things I wanted to start out showing you is Google Earth is really good at imagery. They have a lot of really good imagery on here, and you can actually, if you go up to the top here, see some of the historical imagery that they have. You can actually do it by season. You can look at, if you move this slider to the left, you can go further back in the past. And there's different resolutions for different places, so you're going to get some interesting results no matter what you do. But really, Google Earth is great for this kind of imagery. This is raster data. Their vector data is not as high precision as you're going to get in ArcGIS, and that's a big reason that ArcGIS is as useful as it is. There's also not really the analytical and visualization tools that you have in ArcGIS, but like I said, this is a really good introductory course in using this type of software because the concepts are the same. This table of contents is going to be very similar to what you find in ArcGIS, this visualization map, so a good place to start. I'm going to turn that off, turn off the historical imagery. I'm going to keep my borders and labels on and my roads. And I want to show you one of the cool features, the newer features that Google Earth has, and that is this 3D visualization, which you can do this in ArcGIS. You have to do it yourself. It's challenging. It's very difficult to do. But the good people over at Google have already done this for us, and it's a really cool feature. So if you can't tell, I'm scrolling in and scrolling out on my mouse. This click and drag is how you move, but you can also use these tools up in the right. You can zoom in, zoom out. You can do the street view if you've ever used Google Maps. That's a common feature. You can also use these arrows to go up and down, and you can use these arrows to angle. And that's useful when you get in at a lower elevation. So I'm going to zoom in with this angle and show you. You can pick any city if you want to. Any major city has this feature. Once you get down to a certain level, you have to turn this on. It might not be on. This is one of your features in the toolbar, or the table of contents, I'm sorry. You turn on your 3D buildings, and voila, you have a 3D view of the entire city of Chicago. Well, downtown at least. And this is done by taking the imagery that already exists for this place and draping it over a 3D model of this place. The 3D model here probably done in something like SketchUp or CAD or a different software like that. This is something that Google does, but it uses this imagery, and it's really cool, really useful. So here you have Grant Park. Here's sort of downtown area. Analytically, not particularly useful, but really useful as a visualization tool if you're ever doing a project on a city. This is really cool, and I just wanted to show you that. So this is raster data draped over a 3D model. We're going to zoom out, and I've shown you some of the main features that I wanted to talk about. So just play around with it a little bit, get used to the functionality, what does what in here. We're going to be using Google Earth again. It's not going to be, I have to get this angled right, it's a little weird. We're not going to be using this extensively, but if you ever want to do something really quickly, Google Earth is the way to go. You can throw shapes in there, and it's going to be a lot quicker than opening ArcGIS for the most part. So this week's lab, we're going to do something kind of topical. Just recently, there's been if you can zoom out to the whole U.S., recently there's been a thaw in relations between the United States and Cuba. And as of today, actually, there was announced that there was going to be a new ferry line between Florida and Cuba, so that people could take the ferry back and forth from, for example, Key West or Miami, and be able to take that to Havana and back. So I thought it would be interesting if you, as the student, are pretending that you're opening a new ferry business. Say you've been in the ferry business for years, and you want to set up a new route from Key West to Havana. How would you go about doing that? You want to show people this is where the path is going to be, and how, have an idea of how long it's going to be. So for Lab 1, this is what I want you to do. We're going to start out zooming in on the space between Havana and Key West. Key West is right here, Havana is down here. And I'm going to turn off 3D buildings, not necessary. We're going to keep on the borders and labels and keep on the roads. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a destination point, or a departure point and a destination point. And so we're going to be based out of Key West. So we're going to zoom in on Key West. There's beautiful Key West and all of its roads and all of its glory. And what we're going to do is go up here to the toolbar, and we're going to say add a place mark. If you can see that little pin. And in order to move this place mark, you have to have this dialog box open. So this is your edit and create dialog box. So once you do that, you can drag your place mark over to here, somewhere in, this looks like there's some harbor space here, but actually right here you can see these currently existing ferries, the Fort Myers to Key West ferry and the Key West to Fort Jefferson ferry. So we're going to call this Key West departure or something like that. That's the title of this, and you can see it changes the label here. And in this dialog box you can see you've got the lat long, which is really useful. That's the spatial coordinate. And you can add a description here. You can add links and images if you wanted to do that. You can also change the style and color of the labels, which is something that you will be doing a lot of in ArcGIS. Not the same interface, but same concept. You can also change the altitude and the view. We're not going to deal too much with that. So we're going to go back here, and if you click on this little button right next to the name, you can bring up your icons. And this is where we're going to try and pick something that is meaningful as an icon. So we're opening a ferry business. We've got water here, but here's a big boat. Looks kind of like the Titanic. We'll pick that one. And you can see it changes here. So you got your departure point. This is where you're going to open up business. And those ferries go off in that direction. We're going southward. We're going to Havana. So if you zoom out a little bit, we're going to go down to Havana. Zoom in on Havana. You've got a little harbor here. Probably some ferries. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to create a new point, and we're going to put it right there. Doesn't have to be precise, just a general location. And we're going to call this Havana Arrivals or something like that. And we're going to use the same icon for this one. It's the same type of point. In ArcGIS, you would want to store these 2 points in the same feature class. These are things that are similar, and they should be managed in the same way. So conceptually speaking, these are the same type of point. You just have a point where a to and from location. So now you've got your departure and your arrival. And what you're going to do next is what we're going to do is, one of the really interesting things about this area is, if you turn your places on, you'll see, maybe photos, you'll see there's some really interesting, zoom in a little bit. You've got coral reef out here. That's not what I'm looking for. These are way off. Somewhere in here you've got coral reef that are desperately in trouble, but people go out there and they love to see them. Tourists love to go out to the coral reef. They leave from Key West and they come down here to this area and they go to the coral reef. So what we want to do is highlight this area as of interest and an important place for people to go to, and as they're on the ferry, you want to kind of go past it so people can see. We're not going to stop and go snorkeling or scuba diving, but we want to know where these areas are. So this is going to be at your discretion because I can't seem to get those locations to come up. So what we're going to do is just draw a polygon, and what you're going to do is open this tool right here, create a new polygon, same dialog box. We're gonna name it in just a second. So we're gonna draw this polygon, and you can do it however you want. You can add shapes, all different sorts of shapes like that. That's pretty ugly, but we're gonna cancel that. We're gonna create a new one. Just make a square, something like that. And oops, let's delete that one. You right click to delete those points. So we're going to call this coral reef. And so that's what that's called. And maybe we'll create another one. You don't have to follow this exactly in your lab. Just give me an idea that you know how to create a polygon on here. And we're good. So this one is going to be called Coral Reef 2 to distinguish it. This one's the better one, I guess. I don't know. And you can see up here when you're creating these shapes in the top left, in My Places, you're getting these new points, these new features. So what you're going to do to organize those, because that's really what we're doing here, is creating data, but we're also organizing data. And that's the key part of data management in GIS. So you're going to click on My Places, and you're going to go Add, and add a folder. We're going to call this, what are we going to call this? We're going to call this Key West Ferries. That's our business interest. That's what we're going to call our business. We could add an image of what we want to do. So here you have a folder, and you can click on these and drag them into Key West Ferries. And this is your new business model. So you have that. And finally, what we want to do is add, if you click up here, you can add a path, and you want to add the actual ferry line. So we're going to call this ferry line, or maybe we'll call it Key West Havana line, something catchy. And if you go over here, you want to actually change the color. Let's do something colorful, maybe a yellow or a green. You can pick your color. And you see this dialog box here. You can add to the width of it to make it stand out a little bit more. We want to be able to see this line when we're displaying this for our customers. We want to say this is where our route goes. We go past these coral reef, and people on board are able to see them. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and maybe move up a little bit and try and get this right here. So I'm going to put a point there and a point there, and zoom out. We want to go past this. We're just going to go right there, and then we're going to zoom into Havana, and this is our arrivals. So there you go. You get a good idea of, you click OK, and now you've got a pretty good idea of where this ferry route is going to go. It's going to go past these coral reefs. You're going to be able to see those. You can also, if you want to go back and edit something, you go here into this, into the Places section. You can right click on this, and you can change the, say we want to make this a little more transparent. So let's make that 50% opacity. Oh, that's the line, I'm sorry. So what we want to do, make this something like 50%, and do the same for this one, just so we can see that there's ocean there, and that's where our tourists want to go past on their way to beautiful Havana. So this is really all I'm looking for in this lab. I want you to try and put something like this together. Doesn't really matter the details. I want to see a point, a line, a path here, and some polygons showing some points of interest or areas of interest. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can use your discretion, but the better it looks, the happier I'll be. So what you want to do to finish this lab is go up to File, and you want to save this. And this is an image, not a place. You can save these places, and that could also be useful if you want to keep this in the long term. You might want to save place as, and it's going to save it as, oh, this is actually the place. So what you want to do here, let's do that first. You can save this folder, and it saves as either a KMZ or a KML file, and these are actually compatible, compatible in a way with ArcGIS. You can transfer this to ArcGIS or vice versa. It takes a little bit of work, and that's going to be one of the later labs that we do. But if you wanted to save this folder, you go here. I'm going to save it on my desktop. I'm going to save keywestferries.kmz. And so now if you ever wanted to open that up, you can just go to Open and Desktop, and you should be able to, oh, Key West Ferries right there. But I want you to, in order to turn this, to actually turn this in, I want to save an image. And we're going to call this Key West Ferries, or Key West Ferry, call it whatever you like. And it's going to save the view that you have, so make sure you have a good view of Havana and Key West and the area in between. Go ahead and save that. And if I open it up down here, that's my KMZ file, Key West Ferries. This is my image file. And so this is what your map should look like. This is what I would like turned in, is just this JPEG. If you can send this to me with a meaningful title and your name on it. And that's it for Lab 1. Thank you. One more thing that I wanted to add while we are still working with Google Earth, this is something that I forgot to talk about, is this measurement tool. Right here at the top you have a ruler. And this is really useful when you're kind of working on the fly and you want to get an idea of distances on the ground. So for example, if you wanted to look at, if you click on this ruler tool and you wanted to look at the distance between Key West and Havana, you've got your choice of these measurements here. You can do it in feet, inches, miles, kilometers. We're going to do it in miles, and click here, drag to Havana, and you get a good idea of approximately, this is not precise, the mileage between Key West and Havana. So we've got about 104, 105 miles of distance between those two locations. And you can also, if you're interested, you can look at this line file that you created, the Key West Havana line, and you can look at measurements, this tab here on the far right. If you open up the properties of the line file, you go over to the right and you look at the actual measurement of this feature. You can click between your measurements there, and this is 111 miles, so it's not too much longer than the actual as the crow flies distance from Key West to Havana, for example. So pretty efficient use of your space there as far as your Key West to Havana line goes. Just wanted to show that tool. There's a number of other really useful tools in Google Earth that we're not going to use right now, but if you want to explore, play around with it, you can also look at, this actually doesn't have measurements, but that's something that is pretty interesting as far as just tools that you can use on the fly and get a good idea of distance on the ground.